Jordan!
Not this again.
Jordan!
Yes, Matthew.
What would you say if I told you that I have done something that you thought was impossible?
You probably haven't.
I have found a police department worse than the Welch, Oklahoma Police Department.
That is shocking.
Are you ready?
No. Yes, but no.
Well, buckle up because we're going ahead anyways. Welcome to another episode of All Things Mysterious, the podcast where the realms of true crime, the supernatural, and the unexplained converge. I'm your host, Matt.
I'm Jordan.
Let's dive right in. Los Angeles, 1928, a city of dreams where hope and despair walk hand in hand. It's a time of change, of progress, and yet beneath the glittering surface lies a darkness that few dare to confront. In the midst of this vibrant metropolis, a story unfolds, one that will captivate a city and haunt it for years to come. Today we begin our journey into the mystery of Walter Collins, a case that would forever change the lives of those involved and leave a mark on the history of Los Angeles. On a seemingly ordinary Saturday in March 1928, Christine Collins sent her 9-year-old son Walter off to the movies, unaware that this simple act would spiral into a nightmare. Walter never returned home that day, and his disappearance set off a chain of events that would reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Imagine a bright sunny day in Los Angeles. The city is alive with the promise of the American dream, a bustling metropolis where anything seems possible. In a modest home on a quiet street lives a little boy named Walter Collins. Walter was just 9 years old, a typical boy with a love for adventure and a curiosity about the world. With his tousled brown hair and bright, inquisitive eyes, he was a fixture in his neighborhood. Friends and neighbors knew him as a polite and kind-hearted child, always ready with a smile. Walter's mother, Christine Collins, was a hard-working single parent. She juggled her job at a telephone company with the demands of raising her son. Despite the challenges, Christine and Walter shared a close bond. Their life wasn't extravagant, but it was filled with love and hope. They enjoyed simple pleasures, walks in the park, evenings listening to the radio, and Saturday trips to the movies. Walter loved comic books, cowboy movies, and his pet dog, Skippy. He was known for his vivid imagination, often dreaming up heroic tales and grand adventures. To Christine, Walter was everything. A bright light in her life. The center of her world. Los Angeles in 1928 was a city on the rise, a beacon of opportunity and innovation. The roaring 20s were in full swing, bringing with them a sense of excitement and progress. Skyscrapers dotted the skyline, and the streets buzzed with the energy of a population eager to seize the future. Economically, the city was booming. The film industry was flourishing, and Hollywood had become synonymous with glamour and fame. The allure of the silver screen drew people from all walks of life, hoping to make their dreams come true. Yet beneath the glitz and glamour, there were stark contrasts. The wealth gap was wide, and while some basked in luxury, others struggled to make ends meet. It was a time of both immense possibility and deep inequality. Los Angeles was a city of contrast, a place where dreams could be made or shattered in an instant. It was against this backdrop of hope and hardship that the Collins story unfolded. It was March 10, 1928, a Saturday like any other. The sun was shining and the air was filled with the promise of spring. Christine Collins, like many other parents, gave her son a bit of pocket change and sent him off to enjoy the day. Walter was excited. He had plans to see a movie, a favorite pastime that let him escape into a world of heroes and villains, of cowboys and daring deeds. Christine watched him go, a smile on his face, believing that it was just another ordinary day. But as the hours ticked by and the sun dipped lower in the sky, Christine's unease began to grow. The familiar sound of Walter's footsteps never came. The clock struck 6. then 7, and still no sign of Walter. Christine's worry turned to panic. She searched the neighborhood, calling his name, knocking on doors. Her heart raced with fear as the reality set in. Walter was gone. That night, she contacted the police, setting into motion a chain of events that would forever alter their lives. Little did Christine know, this was only the beginning of a nightmare that would stretch on for months, and the search for Walter would uncover truth more terrifying than she could ever imagine.
Okay, first of all, I really like this kid. His dog's name is Skippy.
Out of everything I said, that is the one thing that she actually reacted to when I was telling the story.
I was listening. Also like to go to the movies. I like this kid.
I'm not saying you weren't listening, but I'm just saying the only thing that you visibly reacted to was when I said he had a dog named Skippy.
I'm a dog person. I'm an all animals person. All of them. I even like spiders and snakes and the creepy crawlies.
Yeah, I know. That's why you're weird. But no, I like dogs too. I just don't like snakes.
But his doggo's name was Skippy. That's so cute.
Yeah, it is. So now a couple things you need to keep in mind is one, the year 1928 and the fact that she's a single mom. That'll be key. And this was this bright kid who had a great personality and everyone really enjoyed seeing, and he definitely had no enemies. And obviously he's a 9-year-old kid.
I was going to say he's a kid, but it seems like he was really well loved and really well liked. What do we know so far about his mom?
His mom, she was definitely a loving mom. She worked hard. She tried to do the best she could to give him a life.
Imagine that was really difficult to do in the 20s.
Oh, yeah. And you'll see here in a bit, she was not treated well. Honestly, the one reason that this is another story that I wanted to do from the beginning, but usually Jordan does stories that like makes my blood boil. This is one of those stories that makes my blood boil, and it gets bad. Let's just say I wish I could go back in time and just punch these cops who did this to her. And I guarantee by the end of the story, you will feel similar, if not more than what I feel.
I believe you.
So stay tuned for that. We're going to see if I can piss Jordan off today.
Excellent.
As night fell on March 10th, 1928, Christine's home was filled with an eerie silence. The absence of Walter's cheerful chatter was palpable. Christine paced the living room, her mind racing with worry. Every creak of the house, every distant sound made her heart leap with hope, only to be dashed again by the empty rooms. Christine called out his name, her voice echoing in the stillness. She went from house to house in the neighborhood, asking if anyone had seen her son. The answers were all the same. No one had seen Walter. As the hours dragged on, Christine's panic grew. She couldn't understand how her son, who had simply gone to the movies, had vanished without a trace. Desperation clawed at her as she decided to contact the police. It was the middle of the night when Christine finally reached out, her voice trembling with fear and urgency.
My son is missing. He's only 9 years old. Please, you have to help me find him.
She said, her voice breaking. They responded swiftly, understanding the gravity of a missing child case. Detectives arrived at Christine's home, their faces grim but determined. They asked her a series of questions, trying to piece together Walter's last known movements. Christine recounted every detail she could remember: the clothes Walter was wearing, the route he usually took, his favorite haunts. The police fanned out across the neighborhood, questioning residents, searching alleyways, and combing through local parks. Despite their efforts, the initial search yielded little. The detectives worked tirelessly, followed up on every lead and tip that came in. Some claimed to have seen a boy matching Walter's description, but none of the sightings panned out. The days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Walter. The police expanded their search, reaching out to other jurisdictions and even neighboring states. They distributed flyers, organized search parties, and kept the lines of communication open with Christine. Christine, meanwhile, was relentless. She worked closely with the detectives, offering any information she could think of. No matter how trivial it seemed, her hope was unwavering. But as time went on, the weight of uncertainty began to take its toll. The disappearance of a child is a story that strikes at the heart of any community. Walter's case was no exception. The local newspapers quickly picked up the story, splashing Walter's picture across their front pages. Headlines screamed of the missing boy, and the public's imagination was captured by the mystery. The media coverage brought Walter's story into the homes of thousands, turning it from a local tragedy into a citywide crisis. Reporters followed every development, their articles filled with both hope and fear. The public's reaction was immediate and intense. Parents held their children a little closer, and strangers volunteered to join the search. Christine's plight resonated deeply with the community. She was portrayed as a determined, grieving mother, a symbol of unwavering love and relentless pursuit of her child. Her interviews with the press were heartbreaking, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and steely resolve. Yet, with the intense media scrutiny came a flood of false leads and hoaxes. People from all over claimed to have seen Walter, each report raising Christine's hope only to dash them again. The police were inundated with tips, but most were dead ends, adding to the growing frustration. Despite the setbacks, the community's support and the relentless media coverage kept the search alive. Walter Collins had become more than just a missing boy. He was a symbol of hope and the fight against despair. The city of Los Angeles was united in a common goal: to find Walter and bring him home.
You said initially that this case was going to piss me off and the police were very bad, but what I'm seeing at the moment, because you have this weird smile on your face that I'm not liking, is that they're actually doing a pretty decent job.
Yes, at the beginning, the police really did. They did everything they could. The community was very helpful in trying to find Walter. Obviously, sometimes not very helpful when they were given false leads and stuff, but a lot of people joined search parties and the community really came together. And the police at this point were doing everything they could.
That's what it seems like. So yeah, I'm sitting over here like, you said I was going to hate this. So I was prepared for them to just be like, no, screw you. But then they jumped on it. They're doing the best that they can, at least for the moment. So I'm prepared for the worst over here. I don't know. Matt actually has chosen a case, surprisingly, that I actually don't know. So I'm impressed, first of all. But second of all, I'm worried.
Because, I mean, this story is the perfect storm almost, because you've got a case that has become citywide, statewide, and even at some point national-wide. So there's immense pressure on the police to solve this case.
Oh, of course. This kid is like a beacon at the point.
And what have we learned when cops are pressured to solve a case?
Oh, no. They start doing stupid things.
Which we'll get into in a minute.
That makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes sense.
No, just you wait. It's coming up quickly. August 1928. 5 long months after Walter Collins disappeared. The sweltering summer heat lay heavy over Los Angeles when news arrived that would send shockwaves through Christine Collins' life once more. A boy, claiming to be Walter Collins, had been found in DeKalb, Illinois. The message was brief but electrifying. Boy found in Illinois claims to be Walter Collins. For Christine, it was a lifeline, a beacon of hope piercing through months of darkness. The LAPD, eager to close the case, arranged for the boy to be brought back to Los Angeles immediately. When the train arrived, Christine stood on the platform, her heart pounding with anticipation. The crowd parted as the boy stepped off the train, his face pale and his eyes wide with uncertainty. He looked up at Christine, uttered the words she had longed to hear. Mother. Embracing the boy, Christine felt a flicker of doubt, a tiny seed of uncertainty. But in the moment, she pushed it aside, overwhelmed by the need to believe that her son had come home. The LAPD, too, was eager to believe. They presented the boy to the press, celebrating the miraculous reunion. Flashbulbs popped and headlines heralded the happy ending. But beneath the surface, Christine's doubts began to grow. In the days that followed, Christine's unease turned into non-suspicion. She noticed small discrepancies. The boy's mannerisms, his speech, the way he held himself. These were not the traits of her Walter. She compared photographs, examined birthmarks, and quizzed him on details only her real son would know. The more she looked, the more convinced she became. This boy was not Walter. Christine took her concerns to the LAPD, but they were met with resistance. The police, desperate to close the high-profile case, dismissed her claims. They insisted she was mistaken, that the trauma of Walter's disappearance had clouded her judgment. At one point, even stating, "You should just try the boy out." Frustrated but deterred, Christine continued to press the issue. She sought help from doctors and dental records, anything that could prove her case. But the more she pushed, the more hostile the police became. The LAPD, under immense pressure and facing public scrutiny, made a shocking decision. They declared Christine mentally unstable and had her committed to the Los Angeles County General Hospital's psychiatric ward. It was a move designed to silence her and protect their narrative. I've actually got more on this part, but I just had to stop because I saw your reaction.
Just okay. What the fuck? That went south so fast. So fast, though. Okay, so I do recognize, I don't know if it's this case, but I know there was a case at least similar to it, now that I'm thinking about it. And I don't know if it was this one or not, because I'm only just slightly familiar with it.
There's another one that's similar that happened in like Louisiana or something.
I think that one maybe is the one I'm thinking of. I don't recognize this name.
No, there was another one that was similar, like a boy went missing, a boy was found and brought back to the family. Turns out it wasn't the actual boy, and the mom of this boy was treated like crap and basically dismissed because they wanted this boy to be the one that they were looking for.
Yeah, I think similar, but I don't think this is the one that I'm actually familiar with. But either way, what the actual fuck?
Yeah, I told you, this makes my blood boil.
Jesus Christ.
They accused her of trying to make the LAPD look bad. They accused her of being a bad mom. They even at one point accused her of murdering her son and trying to make a fool of the police department.
Jesus Christ. This poor woman.
And then, of course, they end up locking her up in a mental asylum. And it wasn't just a 1 or 2 day thing. She was there for a little while.
And those were not a place you wanted to be. They're still, honestly, probably not. But they were especially not a place you wanted to be back then.
Yeah, in the 1928, definitely not. But yeah, I saw the look on your face. You were probably as mad as I am when I first heard this case.
There aren't words. Just, I was outraged and just shocked, because how do you go from I'm going to do everything I can to find your son to we found we think he's your son. He looks like your son. Here you go. We found him. Take him.
It gets worse.
Fine.
Buckle up, because here we go. Christine found herself in a nightmare. Locked away, her pleas ignored, she was subjected to humiliating and degrading treatment. She was told repeatedly that she was delusional, that the boy was indeed her son, and that her refusal to accept it was a sign of her mental illness. Inside the hospital, Christine's strength was tested, but her resolve never wavered. She knew the truth, and she was determined to prove it, no matter the cost. Her story began to attract attention, raising questions about the LAPD's handling of the case and the boy's true identity. Outside, the public was beginning to take notice. Journalists started to dig deeper, and soon the cracks in the LAPD story began to show. Christine's fight for the truth was far from over, but she had sparked movement, a rallying cry for justice and accountability. As Christine languished in the psychiatric ward, the real story behind the boy's identity and the fate of her son, Walter, was slowly coming to light. The revelations that would follow would be more shocking than anyone could have imagined.
Okay, so the media is picking up on this now, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, I think.
It is. Unfortunately, back then the media didn't have as much of an impact as they probably should have or probably do now. It definitely helped her case, but it helped it fast.
No, I'm sure back then it was far different.
Yeah, it definitely was. And that's like a lot of it is she just, like this woman already, she lost her son, is missing, been missing for months. She gets this boy back, and a mother's going to know if it's her son or not. At first, you may not know because you're going to have the grief and just wanting it to be your son. But eventually it's going to come through that it's not your son. And for her to say, hey, this is not my son. Who is this boy? And then for the cops to basically say, you're delusional, that is your son. Stop trying to skirt your responsibility, be a mom, blah, blah, all that stuff. I don't get the mentality. I really don't.
I'm so proud of her, though. Like, she stuck to her guns.
Oh, yeah, she definitely did. And that's what a lot of public it was mixed, obviously, as a lot of things are. A lot of public saw her as a bad mom, mostly because I think they really wanted to believe that Walter had been found. A lot of it was people still believed the police and thought the police were being truthful, which we even see that today.
Facts.
Yeah. But then there was a growing support network, people who believed her and were fighting for her, trying to make sure that her truth was spoken. And that's the one good part about this story. But yeah, it does get a little bit earlier. Or it does, I don't know, you know what I just said. It does get a little bit bad, or a little bit worse.
Oh, great. I love it.
You'll probably, I think by the end of the story, you'll agree that the LAPD is probably above the Welch Police Department.
Love that.
As the days turned into weeks, the story of the boy who claimed to be Walter Collins began to unravel. In a small town in Iowa, a revelation emerged that would turn the case on its head. The boy was not Walter Collins at all. His real name was Arthur Hutchins, a 12-year-old runaway from Illinois. Arthur had run away from an unhappy home, seeking adventure and escape. When he was picked up by authorities in Illinois, he saw an opportunity. He had heard about the missing Walter Collins and realized he bore a resemblance to the boy. Hoping for a trip to Hollywood and the chance to start a new life, Arthur decided to pretend to be Walter. Arthur's deception was driven by a child's desperate hope for a better life, but it had unintended and devastating consequences for Christine Collins. His admission finally gave Christine the proof she needed, but the damage had already been done. While Christine battled for the truth, another even darker story was unfolding in Wineville, a small town near Riverside, California. In September 1928, authorities discovered a series of shallow graves on a remote chicken farm owned by Gordon Stewart North. What they found there would horrify the nation. Northcott, a young, charismatic man, had lured boys to his farm where he subjected them to unspeakable horrors before murdering them. Among the victims were several boys who had been reported missing in the Los Angeles area. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that the Wineville chicken coop murders were connected to the disappearance of Walter Collins. Evidence suggested that Walter might have been one of North's victims, although his body was never definitively identified. The grisly discovery shocked the nation and brought a tragic context to the disappearance of Walter. Northcott's trial and subsequent conviction of the murders brought some closures to the family of the victims. But for Christine, the nightmare was far from over. Armed with the truth about Archer and the revelations from the Wineville chicken coop murders, Christine Collins was finally released from the psychiatric hospital. Her vindication came slowly, but it was a hard-fought victory. Christine filed a lawsuit against the LAPD, specifically targeting Captain J.J. Jones, who had committed her to the psychiatric ward. The court ruled in her favor, awarding her a significant settlement and publicly acknowledging the grave injustice she had endured. Though no amount of money could erase the pain and suffering, Christine's fight for justice was a testament to her strength and determination. The LAPD, under intense scrutiny, eventually admitted their mistakes, and the case led to significant changes in police procedures and the treatment of missing person cases. Christine Collins' story did not have the happy ending she had hoped for. The whereabouts of her son, Walter, remained a mystery, but her relentless pursuit of the truth brought about a change and highlighted the need for accountability in law enforcement. Christine became a symbol of resilience, her story a poignant reminder of the power of a mother's love and the importance of justice. So, it is worth noting that she did win her lawsuit. However, Captain J.J. Jones did not get any kind of punishment.
That's a load of bullshit.
Yes. He was definitely a piece of crap, to say the least. He put this mom through hell. And even after the revelation came that it was Arthur Hutchins that was pretending to be him, even after the boy admitted it, it still took him weeks to let her out of the mental hospital.
Honestly, I was fully expecting for you to be like, it was his idea, for this kid to be like, oh, and my name is Walter.
Yeah. No, although I wouldn't put it past him, honestly. But it's generally accepted that Walter was killed by Northcott at his farm. And that's another story that I might do eventually because that's fascinating in its own right. But it is generally accepted that Walter died on that farm. There were some eyewitnesses that may have saw some young boys who survived and may have saw Walter there. There's a few other things. So it's generally accepted that he did die on that farm.
And back then, it's not like they could have done DNA stuff to find out.
And honestly, after he'd murdered the boys, some of them he would bury, some of them he would feed to his pigs. There was a lot of the boys where they only found partial remains. A lot of it relied on eyewitnesses and confessions. I can only imagine that this mother going through all this to pretty much know at that point that her son probably died on this farm, but not knowing, like, that'd be the worst part. Accepting that he died would be one thing. She went through hell to never really know for sure. Like, that's one reason I hate serial killers so much, because if you get caught, just admit to all the crimes you did. Give those family the closure that they need.
Yeah, I agree. Because she'll never know. She never knew for sure. I'm sure she probably knew a little bit in her heart that he was gone, but she'll never know.
I mean, obviously she's dead now, but this is almost 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah. She gone.
But it frustrates me so much just because they were so eager to close this case. And like I said, at the beginning, they did their due diligence. They tried everything they could, but it was like they got this one hopeful thing that they're just like, hey, it's got to be Walter. We got to close this case. Let's get him back here and wipe our hands of it.
Which I don't blame them for when the kid said he was Walter. I get it. Oh, that's so exciting. Let's reunite them. That's amazing. But then when she said it's not, that's when they need to be like, okay, let's look into this a little bit further.
Mind you, this kid was 3 years older than Walter.
That also should have been a red flag.
Yeah. And while he did have a close resemblance to Walter, they definitely should have investigated a little bit further, because at this point, obviously, Walter's case was nationwide if this kid had already heard about it. And I think he did an interview at one point, and besides coming here to start a new life, he wanted to come to Hollywood to meet an actor. Which,
I mean, he's a kid. At the same time, like, he is old enough at that point. Come on, man.
Yeah. I don't think he intentionally meant to do harm to this mom. I don't think he really thought it through.
He was a kid.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I don't blame him at all. I blame him a little bit because I think he should be held accountable for his actions. But I blame the police on that. At the end of the day, they should have investigated. They should have asked some questions and said, hey, let's bring this kid back and let's just call it good. And then even at some point for JJ to sit there and say, just try the kid out. He'll be fine.
You're right. It's not a car. It is a child.
Because they wanted this case closed. They did not want to open back up.
You're not supposed to just try it on for size. No. It is a child. And even if no, that's not how it works. You don't just replace your child. That's not how it goes. Like, I'm not a mom, but that's not how it goes. You want your child back. You don't want a replacement.
Exactly. It's just I don't get like his whole demeanor or anything. I just don't get this case at all. Because one, if it's not Walter, I would want to know who it is. Because there'd be another family that's missing him.
Exactly. At that point, they failed because they failed him and his other family.
Yeah. Which, granted, from what I understand, Walter's family wasn't the greatest in the world. There was a lot of allegations.
Fair, but what if they weren't and he just ran away?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm not going to hold too much against him. He's a kid, wasn't thinking through what he was doing. But the police are adults. They should have, at the very least, asked some questions. And then when the mom comes to you saying something is wrong here, listen to her. She has every reason to want to believe that this is her son. She has no reason to sit here and say that it's not her son, unless it's not her son.
And she's going to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. She's going to know.
And that's why she admitted fully that she had her doubts almost instantly. But the idea that her son was back pushed that down. The happiness that her son was found, clouded her judgment and buried that stuff down, which I get 100%.
Yeah, it'd been so many months. And you have that doubt in the back of your head, like, maybe I've just forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe he's grown. Maybe he's changed. I don't know what he's been through. Maybe there's been a lot going on. So, I mean, I get that you're going to talk yourself out of the doubts, essentially. But at some point, it becomes so strong that she can no longer talk herself out of these doubts. It's clear to her that this is not her son. So at that point, the police should have opened the case back up and done everything they could to find her. They did not do that. Instead, they decided to throw her in a mental hospital to keep her quiet, which is inexcusable. And I don't know how much the settlement was, but I can tell you it wasn't big enough.
No.
So I feel for this lady. Even just now thinking about it, it makes my blood boil just because of the thing that these officers did. And just because they didn't want to they wanted to close this case. That's plain and simple. They just didn't want to do their job. And we said it before, and we will keep calling out these police departments that don't want to do their job, because ultimately them closing this case when they did is probably the reason they never found any evidence.
It's true.
I think by the time they learned about the Northcott Farms, which was a totally separate investigation, in fact, it was after the fact when they connected Walter to possibly there. And it was other detectives with the LAPD that kind of put that together, who actually were doing their job. But it never should have got to that point. It never should have got to the point where this woman was thrown in jail, or not jail, but thrown in a mental hospital.
Which is about the same thing back then, let's be honest. Might actually have been worse.
Honestly, probably back in 1928, it was probably worse.
Probably worse.
Which it shows how easy it is for them to abuse that if it's so easy to lock somebody up in a mental hospital without any kind of justification, which is scary if you think about it.
It's terrifying, actually.
Yeah, they definitely held this woman hostage, plain and simple. She was held without a trial, without any kind of representation. She was basically just thrown in this mental hospital, and that was it. And that must have been excruciating. That must have been horrible.
And she still stuck to her beliefs, which especially back then, I said this earlier, I'm just so proud of her because she still stuck to her beliefs. She still said the truth. She was like, this is not my son.
100%. She never once changed her story. She kept to her guns. She was great in this whole thing. I have the utmost respect for her. She went through hell and she did not let it break her. Honestly, if I was going through the same thing, I don't know if I would come out of that. I don't know if I would make it through all that.
Truth, I don't know if I would.
I'd give her 100% of the credit. And those cops fucking suck. Especially Jay Jones. Christine Collins emerged from her ordeal a changed woman. Her story a stark reminder of the power of persistence in the face of overwhelming adversity. Though she never found her son, her relentless pursuit of the truth left an indelible mark on the LAPD and the justice system. The LAPD, under intense public scrutiny, was forced to confront its failings. The case led to significant reforms in how missing person cases were handled and highlighted the importance of accountability within law enforcement. The scandals surrounding Walter Collins' disappearance and the subsequent revelations of the Wineville chicken coop murders shook the department to its core, prompting changes aimed at preventing such tragedies from happening again. Despite the advances in policy and procedure, many questions about Walter's fate remain unanswered. Was he truly one of Gordon Stewart's victims, lost forever in the horrors of Wineville chicken coop, or did he meet another fate entirely? His whereabouts remain a haunting mystery. These unanswered questions continue to captivate and perplex those who delve into the case. The mystery of Walter Collins endures, a dark chapter in Los Angeles history that still echoes through the decades. The story of Christine Collins and her son Walter is a poignant reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. It is testament to a mother's unwavering love and her fight for justice against insurmountable odds. While the case leaves us with many questions, it also offers valuable lessons about persevering the need for a systematic change. As we close this chapter, we invite you to reflect on the significance of this story and its enduring impact. Thank you for joining us on this journey through all things mysterious. If you've enjoyed uncovering these mysteries with us, please show your support by liking, subscribing, and following us on your favorite listening platform. For more content and ways to stay connected, don't forget to check out our links in the description below.
As always, we keep you guessing,